Tabletops will start after the following messages.
Are you looking for something comfortable to wear and keep your brain warm while playing tabletop games? Daily Dose of Yarn makes handmade, customized beanies for all of your style and comfort needs. She can even help you with a custom beanie to represent your favorite character. Check out Daily Dose of Yarn on Instagram and Etsy to order your new favorite beanie today.
Hello there, I'm Calvin Piper, host and DM of the Wild Magic School Bus, the most unprofessional D&D podcast you'll ever hear.
Excuse me, how can you call us unprofessional?
1 second, Ohiana, I'm recording a trailer. Join me and my friends each Monday as we travel through the fantasy world of Talrun Mall, a land divided between magic and man.
Hold on, we just gonna exclude lizards from that?
And robotic sidekicks that were once lizards?
Oddly specific, but sure, we can include them. So come along for the ride on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your shows, and listen to D&D the way it was meant to be endured. All right, everyone on the bus.
All right.
He's gotta have a window seat or he's gonna get sick.
Hey, Zeph, what's a podcast?
Tabini, a podcast is when a group of people love each other very, very much and they want to...
Welcome back to Tabletop, everyone. This is Nick, your host, and today we are talking about character arcs. I got all the regular boys in the mix with me today. Daniel, Shade, Franco, why don't you just give us a little introduction for yourselves?
Who could have made you say that?
Who wrote this copy, I wonder?
It wasn't me, Franco.
Hi, I'm Shade, and I'm in the middle of an arc of doubt.
Doubt about my life choices. How about you over there in the orange hat?
It's a regular D, Daniel, over here.
It's me, regular D.
This is cursed.
All right, here we go. Today we're talking about character arcs, everyone. And I just gotta say, this one is gonna be wild because I think that we all have very different opinions about character arcs and how they come about and like how to make them happen or encourage them to happen. So why don't we just start by going around with that of what is a character arc to you as a GM and like how do you, or even as a player, and how do you try to get them going in a game? Do you at all? What's your feelings on it?
Character arc is your own responsibility, and leave me out of it.
As a GM?
As the GM, I'm the GM.
Yeah. I mean, I agree to an extent. I think that it's good to chat with your players about where do you want to take this character. But overall, I never want to have players feel that they have to have a character arc. If you want to be just a
bozo,
a hero for fun, and that's all you are. You're a hero for fun.
You're just a bozo fighter who's got a bucket on his head and is down to clown adventure-wise.
I mean, I love it. I'm still going to put you through tragedy, but you know, you can stay that way.
You will experience the low lows of life.
This bucket is the head of my friend who is a warforged.
Yeah. Real things from our table.
This is one of the things that I often think about when I'm making a character, though, is what is their arc going to be? Where am I starting when this player arrives, level 1, and then where do I want to be at the end of this adventure, at the end of this campaign?
I gotta tell you, I've never thought about that when making any of my characters.
It really depends.
I do all the time.
I never think about it.
It really does depend, and I think it also depends on how much I know about the world I'm going into already. Because if I don't know, I just had a session 0 recently, a couple session 0s recently. God, 3? Yeah, anyway.
Nerd. Ruh-roh.
Yeah, nerd.
Someone's about to be really busy.
Nerd who's already really busy anyway. I don't like free time. No, I have every single 5th edition like character option mapped out for...
This is wild. Can I tell a quick Shade story? So when we were doing Lakewood, I asked everyone to make a character or two and say like, yeah, throw me some basic character concepts, whatever you want, just so I know what you're interested in playing. And Shade sent me a Microsoft One document that had every single like permutation of the different playbooks that you can possibly make in Monster of the Week, and said, yeah, these 4 are the ones I'm most interested in, but I'll do any of these. And I was like, that was not what I asked you to do.
This is your decision.
I mean, I enjoy as a player just filling the needs of the table is what I was trying to say, but I couldn't for some reason say it. Anyway, I legitimately went in a recent Session Zero where I was like, I rolled on my big table of 5e characters and I was like, all right, this is the character. Where does this loosely fit into your world, DM? And I was told this, and then I'm watching the others build their characters around me, and at some point, I just started, because I was done way ahead of everyone else, and
because you had the table.
Yeah, I had everything.
Prep
already.
is everything.
Yep. And I started kind of thinking about, okay, where's this character going to go? Things like that. And I was kind of idly rolling on my table again, and I came up with another character that was pretty similar, but still different enough that I was like, oh, this is so much of a better fit for everything that I know. And that's where I was able to kind of think about my character arcs a little bit better. With the first guy, I was just like, he's just going to be there.
When you say character arc, though, what do you mean?
So I mean by character arc, if the character I landed on, any of you ever play Final Fantasy IX?
Yes.
No.
Okay. I knew you would have my back, Daniel. Steiner.
Oh, yeah, Steiner.
Yeah, I landed on Steiner. So Steiner, for those who don't know, is a knight who takes himself far too seriously, takes his knightly order far too seriously. And by the end of the game, he kind of realizes, oh, wow, that was all stupid garbage. Like, what matters is honor and caring about those who are important to me and protecting people in general. All the fucking pomp and circumstance that goes with it, not cool. So that's kind of generally where I would, what I would call a character arc. It is a realization of growth.
Yeah. For me, when I come into a session, I have like a couple of general like story arcs that I'm interested in playing out. So I actually kind of start from a story arc. Like I was telling you, Shade, like I'm really interested. I really want to play a redemption arc next. I really want to do that. And so I made a character who's just like, he's a bad main, but eventually will become a good main. But I am like really interested in playing that. And so I have that as a character concept in the back of my mind. But usually like But I kind of am in the middle, like the Esper's campaign that we're doing, we just started, Daniel.
Yeah.
Like that character I built with everyone at the table because that's what you requested. And also like, I don't really have a firm idea of what this character's arc is going to be. It's going to be emergent through the gameplay, right?
Yeah, it's going to be a very complicated game. I'm sorry for everything I've done.
Also, for the Esper's game, like when I made Wisps, like his desire, like sure, like I don't know, I guess you could call it character arc, and like ultimately the way that you set up the game kind of necessitated us to have like kind of character arcs, like things that we were supposed to do but then were stolen from us by a time bandit. And then like his whole thing is like, oh, I just want to make like a nice community. I'm a druid and I just want like everyone, I just want to have like a nice like secure community or whatever. And like that's it. That's the only thing I had with the character. And then through the gameplay, you had me working on a ranch, and I was like, oh, obviously he would want to liberate this entire ranch and all these animals on the ranch. And he says things like, agriculture is an abomination to nature, stuff like that. So it's kind of like I don't know if that makes sense. Like that's not going to be an arc or anything like that, but I'm just kind of like playing the character realistically. And if he has an arc, then he has an arc, I guess, So
I guess you're discovering your character's arc as you go.
Well, yeah,
instead of having an idea.
Yeah, that's how I've created all my characters. I mean, I think like Senfi, after her sister was killed in Death House in Barovia, when she came, she was like, I'm looking for my sister. My sister's dead. Now I'm stuck in Barovia. Here are my sister's friends. Okay, let's go kill Strahd. And like that's her goal, Like a lot of the characters that I've made have just had like, like a desire, like a want. and then, we'll just see what happens to that want, how it evolves during the course of the campaign.
One of my favorite characters that I've played was Brova Esni Demethus, who was the future king of the Minotaurs. And that was his goal when we first started. He was going to become the king of the Minotaurs from like his home continent, which was very far away and far removed. And I always knew when I made him that he had this goal and he was going to fail at it.
Yeah.
So the first step of my arc plan was, what is Brova going to do to prove he's worthy of being a king? That's his goal. Everything he does is to prove he's a hero, he can lead, and he should be crowned the Minotaur. And then he failed, which was also like kind of part of the plan.
Yeah.
There was a bit of a time skip.
A kingatar.
And then after he failed, I was like, okay, so now I'm in like phase 2 of his arc. What does he do after he can't do the one thing he's lived his whole life to be? And I made some dark choices.
Yeah, you did.
About
which I don't think we need to get too much into, but it was pretty dark.
Not without the tags, safety tools. But then I basically then played a character that was like kind of like impulsive and overconfident, who became sort of even-tempered and like knew what it meant to have other people like depend on you, and then go into everything I wanted is a lie, sort of depressed mode. And I sort of just planned that out.
I love that band.
And his end of the story was finding self-actualization in a role that needed to be filled, that wasn't what he had wanted it to be, but still gave him that same sense of importance, and sort of finding that externally instead of seeking some internal, like, predestined goal.
Yeah, it kind of makes me think of Sigra, which was my first character ever and the first character I had in Daniel's campaign. And kind of his whole thing was like he wanted to like preserve his community or like have a good community. And what Daniel did throughout the entire game was give us an island or a community or whatever, and then immediately destroy it.
Not immediately.
Well, not immediately, but after a very short amount of time, destroy it. And at the end, he was like a timeless, unstuck in time, 500-year-old paladin, and I think that kind of felt right as a character arc, even though I often call him my most boring character. Like I don't want to say I had the least fun playing him, but I want to say like I felt the least like myself playing him, because he was such a stoic sort of like paladin, like, lawful type of guy. And clearly had like some, he was very bummed out that all of his efforts to create a civilization kept failing and people kept dying and stuff. And so like at the end, him kind of succeeding at this like 500 years later, like felt right and appropriate. But again, it's not something I ever set out to do. And I think that's, I don't know, like I'm not saying like your way is wrong or whatever. No, I'm just saying like I just kind of play differently. And I realize like that's also been why, like sometimes I lean over to the, like looking at the OSR stuff is just like, it's more about like the emergent gameplay and like not thinking about backstory, but thinking about like the forward story, like where the story is going. And like your characters surviving is the backstory of you guys becoming heroes. And I think that is kind of interesting to me, like as a different mode of play. And I think I've realized that I sort of play my characters when I make them that way too.
Yeah. I think for me, the two ways to kind of go about it is either I'm going to figure out my character and their arc during gameplay. It's emergent out of the sessions, and we're going to figure out who this person is going forward. And then the second thing is a little bit more active, which is not even picking a specific type of arc or whatever, but what is the change I want to go through, and then build a character at the beginning of that change. And then throughout your campaign, you can make choices that slowly, incrementally start moving you along.
Which is, it's like a second maybe problem that players can face. If you make a character with an idea, this is the character as they are, this is the change I want them to go through. what do you do when your character has gone through that change
That is
and
a
you're
big
still
thing.
playing the game?
Because all of our Western
not a novel.
stories sort of end at the climax of a life, right? They like go through and they're like, you know, in Star Wars, they're all getting the medals and they're like looking at each other
Except
like
for Chewie.
Except for Chewie, which that's screwed up, man. Screwed
Abomination.
up. Abomination of nature.
No, not him. I just mean that it's an abomination that
they didn't get a medal. But then it ends with them all being like, "Da-dun, da-dun, da-dun," like thumbs up to camera. And they're like, wow, that was the coolest, most exciting thing we've ever done and ever will do. And that's it. And we don't really often have examples of stories where it continues past that point and you see them returning to a mundane, more normal, peaceful existence. So I think that, yeah, Daniel, it's like, just be aware that like that is, unless you can time it perfectly, you're probably going to get there eventually. So
yeah, I would say, you know, for a player that does reach their arc, real life is not about single arcs. You don't go through just one change. You're going to go through many. So you can be content and say, okay, I went through that big change that I had planned out or that was presented to me. And I've weathered that storm, and now my character is changed in this way, and just play them that way. And now it's about supporting other players and their character changes. Or you can start looking for, okay, what's the next moment of change in this character's life?
How do I squander this redemption?
Or how do you squander this redemption? Honestly, because sliding back is a real thing, and that is an arc in and of itself.
Often sequels deal with that issue.
Yeah, true. Fuck, that would be cool as shit.
Yeah. So for a GM though, you know, because we started off this discussion with how as GMs do you kind of get this going, you know, and I think we were all kind of in the opinion that, well, it's up to the player to kind of think about the arcs, but I will say that I think that a GM can at least present possible character arcs for a player.
I try to lead with like loose reins.
Yeah.
When I'm running a session, I make sure that everyone gets like a 15-minute spotlight. Mm-hmm. And if the player's like, I'm good, okay, maybe they don't have anything that night and we don't come back. But I try to rotate and make sure everyone gets a chance to do something. And then if I get a couple of players that have like strong concepts, what I'll try to do is I'll spend a couple of maybe sessions focusing on one. And then like, okay, but give it like a 4-session limit. If you got 4 sessions to play this character's arc, and then move to another character kind of becomes in the spotlight. I know a lot of times you'll hear about main character problems with players thinking, oh, I'm the main character, everything's about me. Mm-hmm. And I run into a lot of problems where none of my players think they're the main characters. Like one of you is going to be in the spotlight, whether you like it or not. I'm kidding. See our episode about conflict. But it can be sort of a back and forth kind of tricky situation. But yeah, you kind of need those character growths to tell a story. Otherwise, it turns into just murder, hoboing, and looting. What do you call it? Looting shoots.
Loot and scoot.
Loot and scoots.
Yeah, I mean, because you kind of leaned into what I was driving towards there. You look at the character strengths, like maybe your player doesn't have an arc in mind, and you can throw them something, and if they want to take it, they can, or they can refuse it. I mean, if you have a player that is all about being a big, strong person, then you can
make them feel weak.
Well, you can give them moments that address that strength. Where does that strength come from? Why does that strength matter?
Yeah, can we tap into a popular bit of pop culture? But like in the first campaign of like Critical Role, that was one of their
I was absolutely referencing Strong.
Yeah, that was Grog's whole thing. He was the barbarian rager, and then for like several sessions, they're like, your strength score is reduced to like 8 now. Figure it out, bud.
Yeah. And I mean, like, I don't know if I would have gone about it quite that way, but certainly it's an interesting, because it gave him a whole character arc of, where does your strength come from? And him realizing that his strength comes from the love around him, the anchors. That's correct.
Oh, I said anger.
Anger? No.
Yeah, because barbarian rages shades. Duh, that's where he gets strong.
Well, I guess that, yes, but I think I would want to, kind of warn people that, like, you don't have to do that,
right?
Because they're professional hectors.
Exactly. And that's why I was like, I don't know if I would have gone quite the way that they did, because I'm sure they had a conversation outside probably of the recording, but the character strength score being reduced is a wild thing. Fun, but it is a lot to
like
take away from a character.
I guess.
Yeah, I guess I just accept this.
I have a lot that I kind of think about from the GM side when it comes to character arcs. But before we talk about it, let's go to some ads real quick, and we'll see you right after this break.
Do you like nerdy stuff? Of course you do. Want to see someone make that stuff, but smaller? Sculpting Minis, tabletop terrain, props, puppets, and tutorials, a crafting channel for all things nerdy. Join me over on YouTube at Niche Crafts, where I make stuff about stuff.
Welcome back, everyone, to Tabletop. We're talking about character arcs today, and we were leaving off with talking about how GMs can kind of facilitate or like help with character arcs, or like how to identify them in characters. So both Shade and Franco and Daniel, you've all played with me now, but you two...
I've never played with you in my life.
That's so true.
And I never will.
But you two played through a full campaign with me, and I thought I did, like, we all at the end were sort of like, wow, that had like a pretty natural arc to it. And I kind of wanted to get your thoughts of, because definitely not you, Shade. Like, I feel like you didn't come into that game with like an arc plan.
Which game?
Liquid.
Oh, Lakewood.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I was thinking.
Yeah, I was thinking you were going to talk about Corridor.
No, I thought you were talking about Argo.
And Franco, you also came in with Carmen, and like you said that as a player, you don't tend to go in with like an arc in mind. I thought both of you had like a pretty strong arc in those games. I think all of the characters did. So I kind of wanted to get from your side as players, like, what did that feel like? And then I can kind of tell from my side what I was doing to try to like help like prop some of those up. But what did you guys remember from that experience?
I made Carmen as a crazy chaos monster. And
you succeeded.
And I succeeded. Yeah, that was my only goal. And I was like, oh yeah, she has this. And I think what I really tried to do, because I knew it was a narrative game, it's Monster of the Week is more of a narrative game. And I think, I mean, all TTRPGs are narrative, right? Ultimately. But I think what I was trying to do was like, just give her as many, hooks to the world that you could fuck with, which she did. She went to school and she lived with her grandpa, and her grandma made her magical doll that she used as a magic focus or whatever.
She had friends at the college.
She was in a love triangle.
Yeah, she took classes.
Yeah, she had like all these she was best friends with the video rental store guy, and like she had all of these,
just trying to hire her for some reason.
She had all these anchors. She was part of the gun club.
Yeah, that was a very funny, weird arc.
And she was just like, oh yeah, let me just give her as many anchors to the world as possible, because I wanted her to feel like kind of lived in, like as part of the community. And that was kind of it. And then like everything that you sort of fed me as like, here's some hooks and options and stuff. I was like, yeah, this is great. And then at the end, I was like, yes, and. And then at the end, I was like, yeah, that was very satisfying. Like this was a full, complete story for this character.
What about you, Shade?
So I came in with a character that was Doctor Who-esque, and I don't want to say that Doctor Who doesn't have character arcs, but Doctor Who doesn't have character arcs.
Yeah.
And before anyone comes at us, yes, the Doctor, but I'm making it simple for people who don't know it.
Yeah.
Anyway, the idea is an itinerant person who just wants to be helpful. And that was kind of, and often gets kind of like in situations where they are on their back foot and, have to kind of be in defense mode or kind of reevaluate what's going I think that there was like the character arc. I wouldn't say I had a real one in mind for that character, but it was really re-amassing power.
Yeah.
Because it was a character who came from a 5th edition into something that's a lot more grounded, like a real world with lighter magic. And so that character growing in power again was so that they could move on to the next problem in their line of the future was kind of how I saw the arc. So it was a natural arc of immersion through the story, or sorry, emergence rather through the story and through just the process of leveling up. As far as, you know, from a narrative perspective, there were plenty of things that for him to latch onto and grow from. You know, it was really about seeing this little community that he had been a part of for now 7 years, I think is what we established, and seeing it start to come apart at the seams for things that really were more in his realm of experience, and having to kind of cope with that, and then having to make 2 decisions at the end of, there is this door to the place that I actually want to go, and I will not be able to get to that door.
Yeah.
And there is the world that I've been at for the last near decade, and I am going to have to exit this world, and I may die in the process.
Yeah.
And making that choice was, I think, a lot of fun, because damn near did die. I mean, I had to really pull out some luck points right at the end. I think I got myself to the doomed status, but it was in the last roll of the game kind of moment. So it was like, all right, I've got myself to the doomed status. I am submerged, but I am at peace. And I think that felt right for his character arc.
Yeah, because for both of you, I thought, and it was interesting because the cases for both of you were very different. Like Franco, you were sort of like, I'm up for everything. This is a brand new character. Let's do this thing. And so I was sort of just like kept like listening very intently to like what you were coming back to, and what you started coming back to was like certain people in the friend group in the college that you sort of were interested in. You kept like saying like, I want to go to class today. What's happening there? And like, I'm going to go talk to my grandpa and see if I can borrow his like Firebird or whatever. So all those things like made it easy for me to say like, okay, this is somebody who just recently moved from Miami, doesn't feel like she has like a firm sense of community here, and is a wild chaos monster. I'm going to just like keep feeding you like ties to continue to nail you down to the community and see how that affects your character.
Yeah.
And then it ended with like a very like nice arc. Whereas Shade, you came in with a character who had already had like several arcs, and especially in your mind had like a very clear sort of what that character was all about. And so for you, when I was trying to work on it, I was just trying to say like, okay, I'm going to feed you a lot of information and options that are very like, they're very mysterious and arcane, but they imply a lot of different things that you can make choices about. And then towards the end, I was like really hammering home, like, you are, like you said, an itinerant character who keeps falling into new campaigns, but like, it kind of feels like this is home right now, and you had to make some hard choices around that. And so I think that when a GM is engaging their characters, it's really, and like trying to facilitate a character arc, it is, what do they keep bringing up? What are they interested in? And then like, how does that in their character background, how is that different than their character background? Or how is that feeding into something that they said was important about their character at the beginning? Like if you are a chaos monster, but every once in a while you do something that's like out of character, out of like, you know, respect or love for another NPC or something, oh, there's something there. Like we can find a change. And yeah, I think that it's like a lot of really active listening for a GM, but you can really help pull out character arcs if you do it that way too, even if your table doesn't have a specific thing in mind. What do you think, Daniel?
Yeah. I feel like my characters in your game didn't have quite as much depth as Carmen and what was Portal.
Yeah.
But I know he had like another name.
Yeah, he had
inside of
Jack in that one.
Yell at Hindar.
Yeah, so like a lot of times the players, if they don't know what their arc wants to be, will hint at kind of what they would follow up on.
Yeah.
Or they would find the most enjoyable.
Like Abraham.
Who just constantly was like, I want vengeance, but then got distracted by other things along the way.
Love. Yeah,
by love.
He almost retired.
He got divorced at the end, which was
character arc.
Bit of a character arc.
Yeah, because it was about finding himself.
It was about finding himself all along. He didn't really want to. He was hunting for a murderer. Then he was hunting for his husband. And then he was like, "Who am I?" At the end of all of this,
he was kind of being like jerked around by fate, and at the end was like, "I am the master of my own fate."
That's right.
Yeah.
Which is good, but it can be tricky sometimes. You don't want to lead a player like you have to do this.
Yeah.
And a lot of times players might think they're being like, "Oh, this is what you want me to do," and I'm trying to make something that you want to do.
Yeah, it's also tough because character arcs can lead to dissonance with the character, and the actual format of TTRPGs is like an immersive fiction, and so by letting people directly interact with the worlds, like character dissonance can be really distracting and kind of take people out of the game if it's not, if it happens too frequently. Yeah. So trying to force an arc, like you said, Daniel, is like never really a good thing.
Yeah, and I think when because Abraham was a character in my campaign, I kept giving you options, like you deciding to retire on that fairy island for a while and then play another character. It was born out of, kind of an offhand remark from Baltzaros, your husband, and him just saying, it's like, yeah, I'd like to, just like relax and like be peaceful for once or whatever. And like, there's been so much stuff going on and all that. And then I remember it just seemed like you really took it to heart and you were just like, maybe Abraham would want to retire or something and like just be apart from all this mess.
Because here's what I had done with Abraham, and like, again, like kind of think about like how your character's arc went to be, is he was very, he grew up on the streets and then he lived in the woods. So he was very like on his own and very sort of like gruff and hard-edged. And I had a lot of antagonistic friendships within the group. And at some point, like, as Abraham like grew, and I was like, okay, he is still seen as the antagonistic sort of brawler of the party, but I was trying to make him sort of grow out of that as he had spent this much time with people. And I was like, well, what's the best way to do that would be, okay, Abraham needs a break. Yeah. He needs to leave and then come back. Because I think sometimes other players, because, they're not in real time seeing these things that you're trying to do, is you have to like, okay, this is the end of that story of Abraham. When he comes back, it's going to be another one. And I think sometimes that gives other players a chance to adapt to new things that you're trying to do with a character.
Yeah, and I think the other thing about you saying you wanted a break with Abraham, I was just like, but he's got to come back though. Like I remember when you were like saying that, I was just like, there's like the character arc thing, like, I naturally felt like there's no way Abraham's storyline is he retires on this island with his husband, because he still has to get his revenge, and he still has to like go back home and like, kind of not like prove himself, but sort of like be the hero he was always trying to be.
He wasn't done, but sometimes in a story where you have more time to tell things, characters do need a break. Mm-hmm. You can't be searching for vengeance 24/7.
Yeah.
You need to take a weekend.
And I think that was good.
Try telling that to Batman.
And I think it fit well with what was happening, because I think it kind of was born out of Abraham just going down to 0 hit points like 3 sessions in a row or something like that.
Right. That was part of like the thing is like he had gone down to 0. He had like faced death, and he was like, man,
that sucks.
That sucks.
Yeah. And I'm
about to die. I brought Baltzaros into this demi-plane. I'm going to abandon him if I die. Mm-hmm. So it was a lot of Abraham would be like, I need to spend time with my husband before I go.
Yeah, it was an interesting way of like, I don't know. It was just interesting how he took him out at a time that felt like within the gameplay and the fiction, like it made sense, because mechanically in the combat, in the little mini game, war game combat thing that we do, your hero went down to the 0 hit points, whatever the fuck a hit point is thing. And it's like, yeah, that all fits. I don't know. It was just kind of neat. It like fit neatly together.
So before we kind of start heading to wrapping up territory, I want to ask maybe a really hard question, which is
the one that I put at the end.
Yeah. Also, this is in Franco's voice. How much does memory and the ephemeral nature of role playing play into the narrative of character arcs? Which I think is actually like a pretty good question.
Could you please explain that question to me?
I'll say what I think it means, and then Franco can say what
let's
he
all go around the
thinks it
table
means.
and let's start with you because you asked for it to be explained.
What do you think?
Man, I don't even know.
Okay, that's fine. That's an answer.
I didn't follow that from word to word, but like I have an attention problem, and that had a lot of.
Yeah, you're playing Pokemon Go right now.
Don't tell the people what I'm doing.
Air this to the world.
It is just sitting open on a coffee table. Audience.
There's a couple of slowpokes there that he doesn't want.
But I thought it meant, how do you structure long-term character changes in story arcs when people don't goddamn remember what a town's name is from week to week because you play once every 2 weeks or whatever.
I have a solution for this.
What is it? Oh, wait. Before you get into the solution,
make it up.
remember it. Remember, you better write it down because we remember. We got to remember, okay?
I got to remember.
You got to remember.
I got to
I'm
remember.
coming back to you.
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking at you dead in the eyes. Will you remember?
I've already forgotten.
All right, Shane, what do you think that the question means?
What do you think of the question? Oh my god!
I think you're just making fun of me because I trolled you at the beginning of the
No, I mean, I think you hit it more or less on the head. It's, how does memory and the ephemeral nature of role-playing play into the narrative of character arcs is literally about why, when you do a session a year ago, and your character started as this little, kind of nobody.
And in fiction, it's been a month.
In fiction, it's been a month. Sometimes it's been a day because you're playing in one of my campaigns, and I am awful about time.
Yeah.
That's a long stretch when you yourself as a player have a limited bandwidth of memory and a lot of time. The other things are happening. I mean, that's it, right?
Well, what did you mean by it, Franco?
I just meant, how much does memory and the ephemeral nature of role-playing play into the narrative of character arcs? I don't understand what the problem is with that question.
But we both
that's
answered
what
it.
you meant.
Yeah,
that's what you meant. Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. Now I get it.
So remembering towns was the thing, Daniel.
Right. So I have solved this in
town
my
names.
campaigns.
You remembered. Wow. Okay, keep going.
Yeah, I'm so good at memory. I have
And the ephemeral nature
2
of play.
documents that I say for every campaign that I
So
run.
it's not memory.
Well, it's to help with memory.
Sure.
One of them is a primer and a journal. I write recaps at the end of every campaign that I try to do within
Every session.
3
Every
days.
session, yeah.
Every session.
He only does it at the end of the campaign.
And
They are long.
they are about a page and a
inaccurate.
half, maybe 2 pages. But I have them all saved in a living document, and I email them out each week. So technically, every player has in their inbox a record of every session that they've played with this character.
Yeah.
And then I keep the primer, which is basically just like a campaign glossary. I believe in like we just started the Esper's campaign. So this was like a hard one to write because everyone they met was the first time they were meeting this person. So Mayor Rubin, all right, made that note. Mayor Rubin is now in the primer. Mayor of Hemlock helped Silas find work in the town. And I'll do that for every named character, every place that the party goes, every item that they find. I record it in a primer that I share access to so that everyone can theoretically go back, check on if something comes up that they don't remember, have these notes that might trigger a memory to go back to, which is a lot of extra work.
Yeah.
But I know that as for me myself, if I don't do this, I'll lose the threads of my own thing. Yeah. So I kind of do this for me, for my players.
It's honestly like so hard because as a player, I'm really bad at this. Like I know a couple times. So Mark's in your Waterdeep campaign, Shade, is very much in the center of things right now. Mm-hmm. And I remember, 3 months ago, you were like, so what's your mom's name? Because my mom in the game is like fairly important right
at this
now.
moment, yeah.
And I was like, oh yeah, it's like Katarina or whatever. And I remember last time we were playing, I was like, I fucking forget her name. Like, what is her name?
Absolutely. And I think that this may be another episode altogether talking about note taking and its importance for both players and GMs. I'm going to plug OneNote and Conka. Just right here and now.
Conka.
Conka. It's like World Anvil. It's really fun. Anyway, I think things like that primer are a fantastic way to combat the limited memory of people. As far as how memory and the ephemeral nature of role-playing play into the narrative of character arcs, I will say that I actually really enjoy playing with memory as a GM and player when it comes to character arcs, because there are things that I know I have thought about my character at an early stage of a game that absolutely are not true at the late stage of a game campaign. And it makes me wonder, why did I even bother with that thought at all? And knowing that no one else is going to remember that thought, awesome. No.
Yeah.
Yes, my character, like, I can lean into that for growth, but I could also, for things that I'm like, no, that was just a really bad take to begin with, I can just lean into, they will remember this character as they are, not as they were. So that's something.
Have you ever gone to the like notes section of a D&D Beyond character, or maybe one of the sheets you're writing for a PBTA game or something, and you see all of the random like halves, like fractions of sentences? They're like, has pocket watch, don't use, or something. And you're like, what the fuck does that mean?
I do remember there's like definitely stuff I've left on like Sana's sheet, I think, where like, because they have like a lot of different aliases as a doppelganger. So I just have a bunch of different, like, okay, they're allied with this group as this person, but this group as that person.
Yeah, you made it really complicated for yourself.
Yeah, it was great. And that way I don't have to remember anything. Because my secret, and this is something that I've been doing, I didn't do this for the first the Argot campaign that I ran for you guys, which was my first campaign. And I did take notes and I wrote recaps, but the recaps were more just fun, silly things for me to write that kind of generally had information in it. And then the current game that I'm running, I stopped taking session notes. And sometimes I have a loose threads Discord channel in the Discord server that I made for this game. And I have thrown a couple of like loose threads in there that I want them to follow back up on, or I want to follow back up on, but right now, it's just all in my noggin and all in their noggins. And when we sit down at the table, if we remember it, then it's happening, and it happened. And
that fills me with dread.
It's kind of liberating.
It's super liberating. Really, that's what I was talking about with that memory thing. Like
that's what I do with Daniel, the work game. When we all sit down, I go, okay, who wants to give a recap of what happened last game? And so then I'm like, whole thing. This is what they remember as important. Exactly. I will follow up on those.
Exactly, because if they remember that it's important, then it's important to you.
Exactly.
If it's something that you would have remembered too, you maybe would go like, oh, by the way, this guy is also a thing, or whatever. Like, don't forget about that. Like sometimes I've done that.
Mooble McBoobleson is also in the party. You all remember?
I changed my inspiration rules. I only give inspirations for natural ones, maintaining the overworld map, and for writing the recap. And a lot of times it's the same character, and he writes it in the character's voice, so it's very silly and very biased.
Is it Steven?
No. It's somebody else now.
I'm genuinely Steven. You gotta get on, man.
You gotta do it.
We all expected it was you because we just kind of look at you as the person who's doing that kind of stuff.
You look like the biggest nerd in a group of nerds.
You're very responsible and a good guy.
No, he's never done it. That's how you get inspiration in my game. So better write those recaps.
Anything else that we want to say about the ephemeral nature of memory and?
No, I mean, again, I'm curious though, Franco. Like for you, how would you have answered this question?
I don't fucking probably like the thing. I don't remember.
He doesn't have to have an answer.
No, I just asked it. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
I mean, he's just asking questions, Shade.
That's the role of the GM: is you ask your characters questions. and I'm GMing this session.
Oh, okay.
You ask your characters questions and you see how they engage with the fiction. How much? Okay, let me look at it. How much does the memory and the ephemeral nature of role playing play into the narrative of character arc? Yeah, I think it can kind of like confuse them, muddle them, and the thing that Shade said earlier is like, yeah, it can sort of reshape them as you go, because the only thing that matters in a role playing game is the present moment that you're actually playing in. And the ephemeral nature that I'm referring to is like, you're not recording it, you're not writing it down, it's not fictional, it's just all going up into the ether and you're just playing. It's like the idea that, I don't know, it's like kind of like thinking about a D&D session and a D&D game as like, oh, this is a fiction, a story or something, versus thinking of it as like, this is playing, like we're playing, like we're kids on a fucking playground or something like that. You know, like we're just playing around and playing pretend.
Yeah.
You know, and that, like, I don't remember those stories that I told on the playground.
I remember them all.
Well, yeah. And then you can, you know, that's how the ephemeral nature and of role playing and memory played into your playground games.
Yeah. And with that, really soulful and profound note, I think that we're reaching the end here.
Sure.
So let me just say,
the end of this arc.
If anybody has any comments about the ephemeral nature of memory,
you
can go to our website, tabletopod.com.
You can add me.
Head down to that little
Get
comment
in the comments.
form. Go to that comment form. Send us in a question or comment about the show. We do read all of them, and we do answer them live on the podcast. Also, if you have a question for Franco, or if you want to back him up, head on down into our review section. You can send a review saying, Franco, the ephemeral nature of memory in TTRPGs is a really important thing to talk about, and I would love it. And you can also give us a big 5 stars for that as well. Also, Tabletop is a proud member of the Helios Network, a podcast network by normal people for normal people. There's a bunch of cool shows on the network like Wasted Truth. It's a podcast where 2 bartenders recount real stories from the Nashville bar scene. It is a blast. Go listen to that wherever you get your podcasts. And everyone, we will see you next week for another episode of Tabletopped.
Goodbye.
Later.
Remember me.
Memories.